The Castle Nathria meta is starting to settle after the nerfs to Guff and to Magister Dawngrasp. So now the biggest question is, what are the 5 best decks in Hearthstone right now? Well, I don't have just 5 decks for you. I have 15 decks that you can easily take to Legend. In today's video of the top 5 decks of Castle Nathria, I decided to do something a little bit different because I ended up getting some comments about how the decks that I'm showing aren't just good to climb to Legend, they're just mainly good in Legend. So what I want to do is to show you guys what decks are going to be working the best at the top of the ladder, and then also show you guys, in case you haven't hit Legend yet, the decks that you can easily hit Legend with, in case you're either on a budget, in case you don't have that many cards. It really just comes down to your play style, but in all honesty, I believe that all of these decks have the capability of hitting Legend, but I want to start off with the top 5 decks that are currently being played in Legend, and there's a lot of craziness that's going around right now. Starting with this best 30 Hunter list. There's something else that I gotta show you. It's the best 40 Hunter list, because right now Beast Hunter is just absolutely slaying the ladder in every single sense of the word, because it is the best deck at every single rank and every single region. So every single region has Hunter problems right now, and it's just about what is the best list of Hunter, because there's a lot of people throwing out a lot of different things. Like Levick, for example, hit rank 1 Legend with this deck, and I'll be making a video about rank 1 Legend here in the next couple of days, or with that Hunter deck, but he's running Phelan. Phelan and Harpoon Gun are a massive deadly combination, especially when you can play the same beasts over and over again, because Levick actually decides to run Revive Pet. So this deck is a little bit like similar to what we used to saw in the previous Voyage of Sunken City meta, but in this particular meta, this is the first time I've seen the list go in this direction, to where I don't think, yeah, there's actually no new cards in this list, and I pointed that out in a previous list that we looked at. But if we want to get into the new cards, this is the way to go. My god, do I hate what Hunter has become on the ladder, because it feels so hard in order to counter this thing. But this is essentially the same deck, just now we have the Wild Seeds packages in here with Stag Charge, with Stag Charge and Wild Spirits. We also run Frenzied Fangs, we have the Batty Guest, we have Castle Kennels, and I think, yeah, we even run Sire Denathrius in this version of the deck. So what is the reason to run the 40 card list as opposed to the 30 card list? I think that the 40 card list is trying to go for more unpredictability, in all honesty. The extra 10 life can make a big difference, especially in the Hunter matchup. But let's be honest, tempo and curving is Hunter's bread and butter. And if you are the Hunter that curves better, it doesn't matter if you have an additional 10 HP a lot of the times. So the HP difference doesn't matter too much in the mirror, but in the other matchups that this deck can go up against Curse Warlock, against like Big Spell Mage, against even like Druids every now and again, like Aggro Druid, that extra 10 HP can sometimes give you that little bit of wiggle room to where if you need to trade with your face in order to keep the board alive, like if you have either your Harpoon Gun ready, or if you have the Wild Seed minion that gives you the 3-attack weapon, you have chances of being able to trade into the board to make things a little bit more awkward for your opponent. So that explains the 40 HP addition, the addition in this deck. But Ramming Mount is also making an appearance in this deck. This is something to where I forget who exactly played this list, but he was very, very adamant about Ramming Mount being a core card in this deck, because, I mean, in the Hunter matchup, you want the bigger board, right? Especially in the mirror, if you put this on a minion and you trade, you're the one that's, always knocking, and your opponent has to play defensively. So this deck has a lot of different ways of being played, and I think it has, like, a slightly smaller curve, because the extra 10 cards seem to be something along the lines of, you have Sire Denathrius, you have Eichmann, which we'll get to in a second. We have Ultimor, is that how you pronounce that? I think that's how you pronounce that. We also have Arlong. This deck is very expensive. So this is also another suggestion to where if you can't play this list, just play the 30 card version, because it's a lot cheaper. But this deck is performing, and I was able to do pretty well with it when I tested it out. But honestly, I don't want to play Hunter anymore. I hate Beast Hunter, in all honesty. But before we move on to the next deck, let's talk about Wing Commander Eichmann, because this card is seeing play in almost all the Hunter lists right now, or at least all the 40 card versions. So why exactly are we running this card? It's actually, surprisingly enough, as a 9-mana card, this is one of Hunter's only comeback tools outside of like running like Tavish or getting really lucky like Rat King trades to where you can potentially revive him twice or have him attack twice in one turn because you revive him. This is like your ultimate win con against decks that do not have like gigantic AoE. Like I'm just gonna use an aggro deck as an option because like they don't have that. But like obviously you don't go to turn 9 against aggro. But just using it as an example, if you play Wing Commander Eichmann against a deck like aggro or a deck like Beast Hunter, and you stick a gigantic board of Mountain Bears, King Crushes, Hydrolodon, freaking Rat King, or if you really haven't drawn it yet, you're a Sharan Sabers. This card can solo games, and that's the only reason why we're putting it in the deck is because against like Druid also, Druid can't deal with this if they just have a bunch of 2/1s. Well, they have Insatiable Devour, but let's not talk about that. I'm kind of all over the place because Beast Hunter is just, you know, a jack of all trades, and the deck that we're showcasing next is literally its only weakness at all stages of ladder. In the lower ladder and high legend, there's only one deck that has a positive win rate against Hunter. So what is it? It's Boon Priest. Boon Priest is what absolutely slaughters Hunter right now, to where this is the only reason why this deck is seeing play yet again, because it is the deck that beats the most popular deck. In the previous patch, this was what was used in order to defeat Rogue with like an 80% matchup. And I think this matchup is like 70%. It's a little bit more favored for the Hunter than compared to the Rogue. But oh my god, does this deck just feel awful to play against on turn 4, turn 5? If you have the nuts. And honestly, I don't think this deck is really that good in general. I think overall it is decent, but it should not be like one of the top 5 decks that I've been featuring in this video for the past 2 videos. So the only reason why this deck is really good is because top legend players are able to play this deck effectively, and they are getting the matchups that they want. If you play this at a lower legend, or if you play this while going to legend from like the diamond ranks, you really need to play this deck effective, and you're still also dependent on the matchups that you will see. So do not play this deck if you are trying to climb to legend unless you are just a really big combo priest person. However, another list that I will show you that is very similar, or actually not very similar, very different, so that way you're not just playing a completely oppressive or completely favored game plan, is Burgle Priest is making a real resurgence. Like, not only did I think Bunny Hopper do pretty well with this deck before the patch came out, but Meaty recently hit rank 1 legend with it. Tic Tac also hit rank 1 legend with it. Currently, they're fighting for that position right now, but they literally went back and forth to the point where I think it was Tic Tac on rank 1 and Meaty on rank 2 playing up against each other. And I'll have that video down below because the Meatman's YouTube needs some love, so make sure you go subscribe to the Meatman's YouTube. But in any case, this deck is all over the place. I have not played it yet, so I really can't tell you the overall game plan or what you want to keep in the mulligan of this deck. But what I can assume is that you play for curve. You have things like Psychic Conjurer, Thrive in Shadows, as well as Identity Theft in order to give you, an actual curve. Murloc Holmes, you probably don't want to play on 3, but you could if you're big-brained enough. But then you have cards like Harvester of Envy, as well as Mysterious Visitor, which reduce the cost of the cards that you steal, and then you steal them back, and this is the way that this deck wins. You literally steal your opponent's win cons, and then you build up, your own tempo through like Venomous Scorpids, removing theirs with Light Maw, Nether Drake, and even like stealing minions, generating like random generation. There's a lot of things that are going for this deck. You can steal win cons, you have plenty of removal. There's a lot of Discover in this deck, which really isn't all too weird to see with priest lists, but the Discover mechanic has been dialed back this current year, so the fact that this deck is actually working, especially with a card like Draconic Operative, seems pretty good if you're really into this style of archetype. But in any case, I think that this is a hard archetype to master. Do not invest all your dust into this if you are just looking for a deck to play, but I do recommend this if you are into the priest game style, because this deck has a very ridiculous threshold that it can hit depending on what kind of cards you steal. Again, I'm not all too familiar with this, so I'm kind of coming up with a lot of this on the spot just looking at this deck, but I have gone up against it on ladder, and a good priest player will make you want to just immediately quit the game without even thinking about it. So I think that if you are looking for a weird but powerful deck, this is probably going to be the weirdest and the most powerful compared to how weird it's going to be. Next up is Edwin Rogue, and if you guys remember in my last video predicting what the top 3 classes are going to be, I predicted that it was going to be Hunter, Priest, and Rogue. I was almost right. Hunter and Priest are the 2 best decks at top legend. However, Rogue, I don't believe, is the 3rd most popular or the 3rd most powerful. I'm still kind of trying to figure that out right now, but it doesn't stop the fact that Rogue is still very powerful on the ladder to where people are still having success with this deck. Edwin Rogue is still good. The revert to Edwin the revert to Edwin just made this deck feel normal again, even though it still has the insane capability of being able to combo as early as turn 4, turn 5. You still have the Shadow Step combo with Edwin as well to make him 2 mana, so you still have, you know, ways of being able to get multiple values out of him cycling through your deck, yada, yada, yada. I don't need to tell you how to play Miracle Rogue. This deck has been very popular since the first wave of nerfs. But one thing I will show you, and this is again why I'm showing you about 15 different decks, guys. 15 different decks. You're never going to see this anywhere else on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe to the channel so you get all of these decks, man. Every single one of them. And one deck I have to show off is this Rank 1 Legend XL Rogue. I actually played this deck myself, so I can talk about this a little bit more confidently, because this deck is kind of difficult, but at the same time, it's extremely fun. I think this deck has a lot more fun than Burgle Priest, personally, but I don't like Priest. In any case, why is this deck fun, and why is it good? First of all, why are we running Renathal in Rogue? Why would we ever do this? To be honest, I feel like we're just doing this in order to maximize how many different scam opportunities we have. Rogue has a lot of ways of being able to scam games, and sometimes it feels like you just have too many cards and not enough slots for it. So you put in Renathal, you put in the extra cards that help, you know, the extra 10 life, kind of give you some sustainability. That's really what this deck is. It's like Control Rogue, to where you can use your HP as a resource as you build up your gigantic game plan. But at the beginning of the game, you're already acting it out with, like, you know, trading cutlasses, playing jackpots, getting ready for potential switch scale trickster turns. This deck has a lot going for it, and this is probably one of the biggest brain decks that you can play on the ladder right now. Because this deck is not, I mean, it's a tempo deck, yes, but it's not a deck that is geared to killing your opponent before turn 10. This is a deck that you're going to go beyond turn 10 several times, unless you get like a Queen Ashara high roll with like a 1-mana Colossal like Gigafin that just completely curves the game in your favor. But in any case, Test Greymane as well as Contraband Stash work extremely well with all the tools that you have in order to find random cards like Jackpot, like Tooth and Nefarian, like Murloc Holmes. There's and also Theotar to a degree. This deck just has a lot of way of being able to fight for tempo, but the thing I love the most about it is the fact that this deck runs Sire Denathrius. I have played about 15 games with this deck, and in 2 of those games, I was able to do Sire Denathrius into Shadow Step into play Sire Denathrius again. That by itself is already the main reason why I'm playing this deck, and it gives this deck ridiculous ways of being able to play the control style as well as getting reward for it. And something else that I have done, if you have noticed, there is not a brand in this deck, but I have already stolen somebody's brand, Shadow Stepped my Denathrius, so it's 8 mana. Have Shadowcrafter Scabs on the field to where I can Hero Power, make a 6 mana Denathrius, to where I can play Brand Denathrius in the exact same turn as a rogue that doesn't even play Brand. Can I sell this deck any better than that? Like, that was the most fun that I've had in this patch so far with that game. And I want to play more games with this deck, but unfortunately, make 1 or 2 misplays, it can really ruin your win rate. So make sure that, you know, you take this suggestion with a grain of salt. Don't just copy it because I told you that it can hit rank 1 legend, because someone did hit rank 1 legend with it. It's the next video that I'm actually working on. I just haven't had the time to edit it yet. But yeah, this deck is a lot of fun and is my vote for the coolest deck currently playable. Next up, we have Spooky Mage, and we're still running the Renathal package in this deck, so we have an extra 10 life, an extra 10 cards, which honestly, I don't know how else to really play this deck, because now that the hero card has been nerfed, there was a version of 30 card Mage that I was looking at, but I really think that the extra HP is kind of necessary right now, because the only thing that's really carrying Mage is the fact that Solid Alibi is pretty much being run in every single Mage deck now as a great way to stall the game, so that way you can build up your Magister, Dawn Grasp, high roll and hero powers and whatnot. I think this deck is a little bit interesting because it does run Mass Polymorph. I don't know how much I agree with this personally, but I like the idea of being able to have ways to come back against like a gigantic board that you can't clear, because Mage losing a durability on Nightcloak Sanctum it didn't change how good the card was in terms of do we play it versus do we not play it, do we run a one of now. It's still a really good card as a 3-mana freeze a minion and develop tempo kind of. But the reason why we need a little bit more sustainability is because now that this has been reduced by 1 durability, you're pretty much, you know, you're going to be pressured a little bit easier now, more times than not. So you really need those solid alibis, you really need the deep water invokers, you even have Commander Shavara in order to get all these cards back, Cold Case for armor. You have plenty of ways of being able to gain life, and that was like Mage's weakest point for the longest time, was not having ways to keep itself alive. Now it has all of that, plus a way to actually kill people, so it makes sense that we're running Renathal plus extra armor cards for that sustainability, because against Hunter in particular, you really need to survive. And that actually might be the reason why Mass Poly is in this deck, is not only to get rid of the big minions that Hunter generates, but there are Hunters that we've seen that are running Revive Pet. So, I mean, this doesn't really help all too much in that instance, but Mass Polymorph does have a reason to see play, especially with Druids and with big minion rogues that are summoning 1919 minions. I think this is a little bit of a stretch, but there's a reason why I think people are playing this. Overall, this is still kind of the same deck that we're used to. We have a Frozen Touch for a little bit of tempo plays and trying to clear the board a bit. But there is one Mage list that I really want to point out. And I had a 9-5 record with this. So this is not just me on some copium, but I was able to do well with Naga Mage. That's right, Naga Mage is a playable deck yet again. I don't think this is going to be a deck to where you can climb to Legend with, but in Legend, man, you can have some fun with this deck. I have been able to do the combo fairly consistently, and honestly, this deck doesn't run Ignite. That was like my first like major what's going on here. We don't run Ignite, so can we even win? Turns out we don't even need Ignite. With the addition of Renathal, you are going to be drawing through your deck very quickly anyway, because you have cards like Multicaster, you have Shavara to give you cards like Arcane Intellect, Gifts of Ashara back. There's just so much tempo in this deck and so much card draw available to where having an additional 10 cards literally is patching, not patching the deck, but it's like buffing the deck a little bit to where we don't need to run Ignite, because fatigue is not the enemy anymore. Just being able to deal enough damage and stalling out the game, again with solid alibis, is all that we really need to do with this deck. We can still generate gigantic boards, and people are not really expecting mages to go wide on the board. The moment that you end up playing School Teacher against somebody, they're going to be like, what's going on here? Especially if you throw out a Treasure Guard. But then once they see the Spite Lash Siren, they know exactly what's going on, and it just comes down to whether or not you guys are fast enough to say Naga Spell in the correct order. This deck is very difficult to play. I played it in my most recent stream, and I'll probably be playing this more because this is, I think, my most fun deck of the patch. I think this is the coolest deck because I absolutely love everything that Naga Mage has been able to do and can do now. But again, this is not a deck that you can probably climb up to Legend with. This is a deck that you would climb in Legend, and it also requires that you play this deck pretty perfectly, because I had some games to where I made 1 or 2 mistakes, and it just completely threw everything out the window for me. You don't need skeletons, but you still run Nightcloak Sanctum, because this deck does kind of like the idea of being able to freeze. However, watch out if you're going to play the combo with the location on the field. You only have, you have 1 less board space to work with. But in any case, this deck is really strong. I would love to see more Naga Mage in the future, but it really just comes down to how powerful this deck is against like the Hunter matchup, because Hunters were giving me a bit of a problem if I wasn't able to get my combo out as early as turn 6. So with that in mind, play some Naga Mage. I think this is going to be a cool way to keep the Mage hero power slightly relevant without just going immediately to the spooky package. And honestly, I'm just happy that we're seeing another archetype that isn't just jamming skeletons. Last and debatably least exciting, we have Ramp Druid, still as a top 5 deck in my opinion to climb the Legend ladder, because this deck is still just really good, man. It's Druid. Even though Guff did get hit and you are gaining empty mana crystals, this card actually feels super fair now. And you want to know why? The only reason that it seems that we're playing Guff is because it sets our maximum mana crystals to 20. It's not just because it's an insane ramp tool anymore. It used to have the best of both worlds, but now you mainly just do this in order to set up the possibility of having 20 mana, and you can't really use the hero power to mega ramp you without cards like Nourish, without the 4 mana Seedsman. There are so many ways of being able to generate massive mana massive mana turns. But Guff is not just the sole reason why we lose a lot of games, even though it still can feel that way. Guff is still a powerful card, don't get me wrong, and that's the reason why I kept my golden version, because I know this card is going to be good until the day that it rotates out. So why exactly are we playing Ramp Druid right now? It's just a good deck, man. It's just a really good deck. The moment that you start just curving perfectly with Wild Growth into Seedsman, into Guff, into Nourish, like, it's just a completely different game to where you're pretty much playing as a Hearthstone boss in single-player content, because there's just the things that you can do with this deck are still very noteworthy. It's just about how fast and how consistently you can pop this off. In all honesty, this deck is still fine. If you want to play this deck in top legend, I think that it can go the distance for you. I just think that, you know, cards like Natural Causes are starting to become a little bit more core. I'm sorry. This card is starting to become a little bit more core due to the fact that you have to be able to deal with early game threats, like with Hunter, for example. Hunter is a matchup that isn't impossible for this deck to win. However, it is pretty favored into Hunter, but there are times where you don't curve out very well to where, you know, you're just going to get stomped by their beasts. But more times than not, this is the way that a lot of people like to try and beat Hunter, due to the fact that you have cards like Devour and, you know, Earthen Scales in order to give yourself ridiculous armor capabilities. That's really the big thing that I feel like Druid has going for it in the Hunter matchup, is that you don't just gain armor and you don't just make big minions, but you're denying your opponent's, you know, board throughout most of these turns. So it's not just the fact that you're making a big minion, you're completely denying everything that your opponent can do. And as a Hunter, if you don't have a board, you have literally nothing. So Druid can kind of take advantage of that weakness a little bit. It's still pretty decent into Demon Hunters, pretty decent into Mages, apparently good into Shamans. What are these statistics I'm looking at? But I think that Druid is just a deck that nobody wants to play right now, due to the fact that Sire to Nathria is apparently leaving some let's see, some bad tastes, giving people some bad tastes in their mouth. I don't know, maybe they don't like the taste of anima. I don't freaking know. People just don't want to play this deck for some reason, and I think that this is still a good deck that you can hit legend with and climb to legend with. But the popularity of this deck has gone down, but it could see some more play, especially as a way of beating Hunter. It just really depends on your curve, honestly, because when a big beast Hunter curves out, there's almost no stopping them. And now let's dive into the best decks to climb to legend, in case you guys are not there yet. So I would say that the 40 card Hunter is probably the best way to go, but you still can use that 30 card Hunter in order to hit legend. I think that both lists are absolutely fine. If budget is a little bit of an issue, then yes, I would go ahead and go with the 30 card list, but if budget is not an issue, go ahead and play this list, because I think it's more fun personally. I like the idea of being able to play more cards and more cool legendaries, and there's just a lot of card packages that seem to complement each other very well here. But this is the king of the meta. This is just by far the king of the meta, and I think that if you guys want to play 30 card Hunter, you do have that option. But Hunter is just the best deck in the game right now. I hate to admit it, and if I, of all people, am admitting it, it's 100% true, because I would not tell this information to you if I could get away with telling you something else was the best deck. But Hunter is like 4% higher than the second highest class on HS Replay right now for a good reason, and it doesn't just taper off at legend, because this deck is apparently here to stay. The next deck that you can easily climb to legend with is Curse Imp Warlock, and before you ask me, yes, you can play regular Imp Lock and hit legend as well, but I believe that this deck has a, number one, more fun way of being played, number two, has more matchups to where you have meaningful decisions that you can make that actually win the game for you. And also, if you hate Priest, this is your deck. This deck is like the Priest killer, because you have ways of being able to mill their cards. You have ways of being able to just generate ridiculous amount of curse damage thanks to Tamsin Rome. And because you're playing a Priest, they got to sit there and wait and take all of this. So you have plenty of time in order to build up your combo to where cards like Lady Darkvein actually don't seem that weak and can perform pretty well in this deck. You can easily, you know, set up Abyssal Waves or your Drag Below. I don't think there's ever a chance of you setting up Impending Catastrophe, but I mean, you do have these other shadow spells that do synergize with Darkvein, but this is just usually going to be extra curse cards for you, and I don't know why you would do anything else. But in any case, I think that this is a perfect mix of being able to play aggro and being able to play a kind of control deck, because you have ways of just being able to just tempo and kill them, and you also have the game plan of being able to destroy board and kill them with curses. So I think that this deck is probably going to be more fun than regular Imp Warlock, and you get to play some curses and see your opponent flip out. How can't that be fun? So I think instead of playing regular Imp Warlock, you should play this deck because it gives you a little bit more, not customability. It gives you more leeway against other matchups to where you just don't have that kind of strategy with regular curse imp, with regular aggro imp block. So I would recommend curse imp Warlock because this deck is a lot more fun, and you're probably going to be able to clutch out more games thanks to the curses. The next deck is Control Shaman. I do believe that this deck is probably the easiest noob slayer to play right now. This is the deck to where people either A, don't know how to play around it, or B, they don't know how to play into it. Meaning that they don't know how to pressure this deck, and they also don't know how to prevent this deck from killing them. And like this is just the newbie slayer, because there's a lot of ways that people will forget about schooling to where you can just get a perfect clear like it's nothing. Clownfish cheats. Like, do I really need to explain why this deck is good? You'll still have Wildpaw Caverns to fight for tempo. You have Knolls becoming other 10 drops. You have Sire Denathrius with Bolner and Macaw. Do I really need to explain why Control Shaman is good right now? Meaty is still doing really well with this deck. He's been playing this as well as the Thief Priest and some other meta breakers, quote unquote, just so he can get that screenshot. But this is the deck that he primarily climbed with, so I know for a fact that you can definitely climb from the lower ranks to legend with this deck very easily, because it's the noob slayer. You have freeze mechanics to where, you know, people hate freeze, they don't want their minions to not get value. Primordial Wave is pretty much your scam card in some of your unfavorable matchups. This card just absolutely solos aggro Druid, for example, if they've already buffed up their board. There's just, this deck has so much capability to where I can't even go into every single little detail because A, I haven't played the deck that consistently. I played it a decent amount, but this deck just has so many different lines that you can go for. It's hard to explain it in less than 5 minutes. I've already talked about this deck in previous videos, so I'm pretty sure you guys already know how to play this deck, but it is still a very good powerhouse to be playing right now. It's one of the only good ways to play a Shaman deck at the time, so if you are really into everything Thrall and everything Elements, then this is the deck for you. Yeah, play some Control Shaman if you want to climb the legend. I think this deck is absolutely killer right now. I swear, dude, every single time, Naga Priest, still a good deck. This has literally been in this video for the past 6 videos, I think. I'm not going to explain why Naga Priest is good. Instead, I'm going to link NoHandsGamer's Rank 1 Naga Priest video so you guys can see a better gamer play this deck than me, because the turns with this deck really require you to understand what you're building towards. Because there are times where you do just want to play a turn 3 Pelagos against matches where you know they can't clear it, but there are going to be other times to where you can't play this on turn 3 because you know your opponent is either going to A, weaken this to where you're not going to be able to get the high roll, or B, is just going to straight up kill it. So Naga Priest, I still think, is a really good deck. I cannot tell you how to play it effectively, so I'm going to let NoHandsGamer take care of that. Links will be down below. And last, we've got Beast Druid. That isn't really Beast Druid, it's just aggro Druid. In fact, I actually made a Beast Druid that we'll take a look here in a second, but it's still kind of funny that this is still happening when I copy the deck. It's still being classified as Beast Druid, even though the only beasts are the turtles as well as the Druid of the Reef, and the Druid of the Reef isn't even a beast itself. So, haha, joke aside, why is this deck still good? It's not that this deck is good, it's just the best aggro deck right now. Like, this is the fastest deck that you're going to be able to climb with, and I believe that this version of the deck is actually slightly better, and it does actually run beasts, so you can actually call it Beast Druid. I forget all the cards that we took out for it, but we took out the Jerry-Rig Carpenter and some other unoptimal cards. I think there was like Mark of the Wild or something. For cards like Vibrant Squirrel, Claw-Throwly Adept, as well as Composting. I just don't know why we're playing this deck without Squirrel and without Adept, especially when like Jerry-Rig Carpenter only draws you like Sow the Soil or maybe Living Roots. Yeah, you get a nature card for your Herald of Nature turn, but why not just play the deck as it's meant to and just play it 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, instead of like setting up this really complicated thing that eventually slows down your game plan. Jerry-Rig Carpenter on 2 is so slow, dude. It's so slow. It doesn't set up anything. And honestly, I like the idea of Claw-Furry Adept more because you can play Sow the Soil and Claw-Furry Adept for +2 attack on any board, and I like that a lot more than maybe being able to build up something if you get lucky with your Jerry Rick Carpenter draw. Regardless, I think that this is the better way of being able to play the deck. Aggro Druid is still a powerhouse, especially at the lower ranks, because a lot of people, A, don't know how to play around aggro, B, once you play the Herald of Nature into Pride's Fury, there's not a lot of decks that can compete with that. So Aggro Druid, still a really good archetype. I would recommend this version of the list other than the other version because I just don't like how unoptimal some of the cards seem. But there you guys have it. Those are what I believe are the best decks to be playing right now. And next time that you see a YouTuber post a top 5 decks video, ask yourself, do I really only want 5 decks? Or should I just watch another Clark HELLSCREAM video because he'll give me 15 decks? And that's exactly what I'm going to do with every single one of my top 5 deck videos, because I'm not giving you just 5 ideas. I'm giving you multiple ideas and showing you the metagame in order to give you the best possible look at, that you can on this on any metagame, honestly. So if you guys enjoy this kind of content, feel free to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a comment about what your favorite deck is in this meta, or if one of these decks is actually working for you, because I would love to see if these videos are making an impact, and I already know they are, but I would love to see how they are working for you guys in particular. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video, and we'll see you for the next one.